Well, almost 25 years ago, Shelli Gardner started in her living room. Most people do this in their garage, but she started in her living room what would become a multi-million-dollar company. Today she leads Stampin' Up, which employs more than 550 people and has more than 40,000 demonstrators in countries around the world. In addition to Stampin' Up, Shelli has recently begun another venture, Brick Canvas, at Thanksgiving Point in Lehigh. This beautiful building houses unique studios and services that help people look and feel their best. Through the past 2 decades, Shelli has enjoyed almost every aspect of an entrepreneur. She has learned about business and the bottom line, but her favorite part of being involved in Stamp Up and Brick Canvas is the opportunity to create and strengthen valuable relationships and make a difference in the lives of those whom she comes in contact with. Let's give a warm Snow College Badger welcome to Shelli Gardner.
Thank you very much for that Badger welcome. I am pleased to be here. It has been many years, several, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, that I have been asked to come and speak. And honestly, every year, fall is one of my busiest times. And I always say, you know what, just tell them to call next year. Surely I'll have more time next year. And I don't think I have any more time this year, but I knew that if I postponed it again, I wouldn't feel right about myself. So I am thrilled to have brought down my friend Tanya with me, and because it is south, so that we do say down, right? And up is north. Okay. I'm from Kanab, so I always say down south, and that's even further south. But I am thrilled to be here to spend a short time with you. This is actually a shorter time than I'm used to, and so if I talk too fast, somebody speak up. It won't offend me. I'm getting over a cold, so I'm a little raspy, and if I talk too fast or I'm too raspy, you'll have to raise your hand and tell me to slow down, because we've got a lot to cover. And what we cover today will not be necessarily what I want to teach or tell you. You're here to ask me questions, not me give you a big, long diatribe, because I think that is so boring. Maybe others can do it, but for me, I don't do so well following a really strict presentation. I don't feel like what I have to tell you is the most important. What you want to hear from me might be the most important. So most of what we do today will be question and answer. If you want a short class, then I guess you won't ask any questions, and I won't speak a lot. But that's never really happened before, so I think that there is some value being together today, and I hope that what I have to share with you will be at least somewhat inspiring on some level. As was mentioned, most of my business experience has come from being involved with Stampin' Up. My sister and I started it in our living room. Our plan was to fill orders and write newsletters and call our demonstrators during nap time. And then the rest of the time we would be perfect moms, because that's really all we wanted to be, were stay-at-home moms. But my sister needed a little extra income. I needed a little social outlet. I had 4 daughters and wanted to get out at night. Loved being a mom, loved our girls, but wanted to have a little social outlet. We both enjoyed the creativity side of stamping, and so that's how the idea of starting Stampin' Up came to be. That simple. Neither of us have business backgrounds. My sister had not been to college. I had only been to 1 year, and guess what I took in my 1 year of college? At BYU Idaho and BYU Provo. Anyone guesses? I just gave you some clues. I wanted to be only a mom. So if you only wanted to ever be a mom, child development, that's all I took. I think I might have learned how to balance a checkbook or something, but that was it. So I had no business background. My sister had no business background. But as women who were mothers and had needs, we felt like there had to be thousands of other women who had our same needs, whether it was the creative side, the social side, the financial side. So we felt like if we have those needs, there have to be others. Let's start a business that we would want to be demonstrators for. that we would want to work for because we couldn't find a company that did what we wanted. And that was quality product, great service, and to have a lot of fun. So naively, we started the company with $75,000 that my husband and I had saved for our first house. Keep in mind, this was 25 years ago. I know you can't buy a house for $75,000 now, but back then, my husband was a general contractor, and that was going to be our first spec house. We would live in it until it sold, and then we would make lots of money, build another house, and keep doing that until we had a house paid free and clear. And my sister was the one who thought of this idea. Said we should start this company. And of course, she didn't have any money. She knew we had some money, so she said, let's go talk to your husband. And I was so sweet and kind and said, sweetie, this is only going to be like maybe a year, and we will have it all paid back. We know this is going to fly, and we'll be able to build our house. It's just going to be a little delayed. Well, that house wasn't built for about 15 years. But it was a great learning experience. We moved several times, and the business has taught me a lot of fabulous lessons. Stampin' Up! Is a multi-level direct selling company. For those of you who are not familiar, did anybody go on the website to see what we are all about? Did anybody grab a flyer as you came in or brochure? A couple of you. Okay. So you know nothing about us. So whatever I tell you, it could be a lie, and you wouldn't know. We are a multi-million-dollar direct sales business, and we have, as was mentioned, over 40,000 demonstrators who act as consultants. We call them demonstrators because they actually demonstrate our product and show you how to use it to make cards, scrapbook pages, home decor items, and gifts. And they go into people's homes. Sometimes some of our demonstrators demonstrate online through videos, but then they are the ones who sell our product and make money 5 levels deep on our product. So that's just kind of a high-level overview of what Stampin' Up! Is. So it's a different business model than going to a store and buy retail. We were silly enough to think that we should only mark up like retail because we didn't realize that our overhead would be so much with all of the downline commissions and overrides that our demonstrators would require to stay in business. But that is one business model. A fairly new business model for me is, as was mentioned, is brick canvas. We just had our ribbon cutting 2 weeks ago, and we have several studios in this one building that offer a variety of services. We have a salon called Vivesque. We have a fitness and nutrition center called Lyceum. We have Fresh, which is a juice bar and healthy foods. We have a spa, Sage Leaf Spa, and we have a Bikram yoga studio. Let me tell you a little bit about this business. Several years ago, I was looking for something that I was interested in. Again, now you're going to see a theme. For those of you who are in business, you're going to see a theme going on here. But I loved yoga, and I would drive 30 minutes to do Bikram yoga, which is yoga in 106-degree temperature and 40% humidity. So it's like a sauna. I see a few of you just gasping. It is very intense, but it was my favorite workout. I loved it, but I didn't like to drive the 30 minutes. So I said to my husband, I'd really like to open a studio closer to home. He thought that was a great idea. My thought then was, but you know what? I have to drive an hour to get my hair cut too. And this is my friend Tanya, who's been doing my hair for over 10 years, who drove with me, who owns Vivesque, and love her, but I didn't want to drive an hour to her salon in Layton. So let's just add a salon to that. And while we're at it, wouldn't it be great to have a spa in the same building as yoga and a salon? Oh, and you know what? You can't go anywhere without food. And by the way, I want fresh, really healthy food. Well, maybe not really healthy, but semi-healthy. Love what Thanksgiving Point offers. It's a great family environment. They have lovely activities and food restaurants and shopping. And that seemed to be the perfect place to do all of that. So that's how that venture started. Have you noticed a theme? Have you ever heard of me marketing? You guys been taught that at all? One of my sons-in-law said to me 2 years ago when we started the Brick Canvas project, when I was explaining to him, wouldn't it be cool to have a building with several things inside? And we still have quite a few square feet that are left to be leased, and who knows what else will be in this building. And he looked at me when I told him what I was thinking, and he said, Shelli, have you ever heard of something called me marketing, where it's all about you? And I said, and your point is, what's the problem with that? If it's something I want, surely it's got to be something other people want. That's how Stampin' Up! Started, and certainly I attribute a lot of the success of Stampin' Up! Because we filled a need for women mainly. We have male demonstrators, but most of our demonstrators are female. So there's kind of a theme. I have no idea if Brick Canvas will be successful. We just opened 2 weeks ago. Everyone who comes to see Brick Canvas and those who have experienced Brick Canvas think it's a brilliant idea. But in a few years, I'll let you know if that's turned profitable or not. You take a risk when you start a business. Those of you who raised your hands know what it takes to run a business. How many of you did not raise your hand, but you want to own your own business? And have, okay, a lot of you. All right. There's a lot that comes into play when you own your own business. You've been told that. Lots of risk, usually monetarily, but there are a lot of other risks that you don't maybe see. You feel it as you live it, but there's risk to relationships. There's a lot of great relationships that come out of business. I have over 500 fabulous employees, thousands of demonstrators whom I love, and our family has been strengthened by this, but it has not always been easy. So I say that there's risk, not just monetarily, but it can take a toll on your life, your health. I was diagnosed a couple of years ago with rheumatoid arthritis, and I said, what do you think caused this? Is this hereditary? Well, Shelli, it's stress, lack of sleep, not eating maybe the right foods, not exercising, stress. Did I mention stress? Anyway, he named everything that I have not been so good at, and it has forced me to prioritize a little bit better. So there are all sorts of risks of running your own business. So some of the things that I've learned, I'm hoping will come out in your questions. And because I've talked way too long already, let's turn it over to questions that you may have about me. Nothing's too personal, and if it is, I'll tell you so. But about me or one of the businesses that I just mentioned. Any questions? Oh, come on, somebody be brave. Okay. The hardest part from getting from my living room to where I am right now. Great question. I don't know that I've ever been asked that, and I have been doing this for a long time. That's a great question. The hardest part. If I look back, I'd have to say logically that it was all the moves. We moved when we started in the living room. We thought we'd be there, as I said, filling orders during nap time. Within 3 months, we were moving into a warehouse with one office space. 4 months later, we were moving into another warehouse that was twice the size with 2 offices in it. And the story goes on and on like that until we finally built our own building a few years back. And it has lots of room for growth. Maybe too much. Maybe I built it too big. I don't think so, because I'm kind of an optimist. I think someday we'll fill it and we'll be adding on. But I would say the physical moves was really hard because I wanted to stay put, but moving was probably one of the hardest things. Another difficult thing from starting a business to now, physically hard, I guess, because you're uprooting your family and that sort of thing. One of the other hardest things is learning to trust myself. I mentioned I don't have a degree. And I worked with several really, really bright men and women who I felt had a lot more experience, had a lot more education. And so if they said, you should do this or you shouldn't do that, I was all ears. I wanted to be a sponge. I wanted to glean everything I could to be better at whatever I was doing. And so for me, I was so trusting and so open that I did what other people told me to do a lot of times. Even now, I still find myself doing it. And I didn't trust my heart. I didn't value what I felt about my business enough. That's probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned, is you have to trust you. And that's not easy to do, because don't we second guess ourselves? I mean, no matter what you're doing in life, you second guess. Well, should I have or shouldn't I have? Whether it was dating somebody or getting married or, you know, it doesn't matter what it is. We all have choices to make. But that was probably the hardest thing that I'm still learning, but I think I finally, at least logically, understand that I need to trust my instinct, my heart. That's probably the most valuable lesson, the hardest lesson, but the most valuable. So, and somebody had a hand up here. He took your question. Oh my, okay, yes.
Could you describe the first, what it took to actually get product manufactured? I mean, that's a multi-level direct sales demonstration is a specific kind of business. You have to understand with that, a lot of organizations.
Okay.
How did that all happen for two ladies?
Well, for two ladies who started out in our living room, the first 6 months of our business, we're going to step back. That's a great question because it is a different type of business model. It's not just putting items on a shelf and inviting people into your living room and saying, well, when it's gone, it's gone. If you're doing multi-level direct sales, you've got people who are, or direct sales, I should say, not necessarily multi-level, but direct sales. They're going out into people's homes and they're selling a product, and by golly, you better have it ready to ship. So, stepping back, we started with the idea in the spring of 1988. We spent the first 6 months before we even started the business going to companies and gathering their designs. We did not have our own designs at the time. We didn't have any product that was ours. It was all product that we could get in stores or through catalog companies. And what we did was we took from 25 plus companies, give or take I should say, and we took the best of their images. Our catalog comprised mostly of stamps and a few accessories. And we asked to license their artwork and put it in the catalog. And so we were selling other people's products. That whole process of getting lawyers and accountants behind us and business licenses and picking our product and having it photographed and getting it to a printer and having a compensation plan, having computer systems that would allow us to pay commissions for a compensation plan that was a little complicated coming from the multi-level. And we were only 3 levels deep then. We're 5 now. That took the first 6 months before we even started business. And then we started in October of 1988 selling our first stamps and accessories. And so it was calling people up and saying, can we take these 50 images or these 10 images? And we had contracts that we had to sign with them. We were a small business. Our catalog was 60 pages, not much bigger than the small catalog you have today, which is just a supplemental catalog throughout the year. We have a much larger one that is our annual catalog. And so it was small scale, but people loved to have everything in one catalog. They didn't have to go to the store. They didn't have to look on, well, we didn't do online, but they didn't have to look at catalogs all over the place and order onesie-twosies. And they had a demonstrator who came into the convenience of their home and taught them how to use that product. That was in October of 1988. So now we're talking this next 6 months, the first 6 months of our doing business, was just keeping ahead of the orders. Meaning, if you ordered a stamp at a party, and you ordered a stamp at a party, your demonstrator or demonstrators would call in or fax in. I know you guys don't even know what faxes are anymore, but back then that was really cool. Would fax in an order, and we would say, okay, we have these 2 stamps for these 2 customers. We happen to have ordered minimum quantities of these stamps, and so we've got some on the shelf of these 2, but these other stamps that were ordered, we don't have any of those. So we're not going to ship these 2 out until we get the others. So then we would place an order, and most of the time they'd make you order minimum quantities. They weren't very big, maybe half a dozen or a dozen of each image. But that was a lot of money when you started adding up 66 pages of catalog product. We would wait a good 2 weeks before that product would come in. We would open the boxes, put them on the shelf, and then pull those orders back out and fill them on clipboards, put them in a box and ship them. So you waited from your party and your party, you waited for almost 3 weeks, sometimes 4, but usually around 3 weeks to get your product. And people were thrilled. Of course, now, if it's not shipped the same day or the next day, we are in serious trouble. But back then, people, they were just happy to have the convenience and the teaching that a demonstrator provided and the fun of getting together and getting free product if you hosted a party. So that's how the first 6 months went, was just the fun of it all. And we just were trying to keep up with ourselves. Then it happened. We had, at least in our industry, and I'm sure it's like this in a lot of industries, the first of the year is kind of slow, and it ramps up in the holiday season, some of our best months. And then it drops down in January. Moms are back into being moms. They're exhausted. They've just finished the holidays. Their kids are in school. They want to take a break. And then it ramps up through the rest of the year. What had happened is we started in October, if you remember. Sales were awesome in the first 3 months through that Christmas season. And they dipped a little bit, but because we were so new and word of mouth was so great and we were getting demonstrators in the door so fast, we didn't realize, as our sales were climbing in the year 1989, when we got to Christmas, we were at an all-time high. We were doing great. And in January, our sales dropped. And we didn't know what to do. And you're sitting here saying, so that's no big deal. So you just go out and run a promotion. But what you don't know that is unusual about business, at least the way we did it, is as the customer, you were financing our business. Yes, we put in the initial $75,000. But every time you placed an order, you paid your demonstrator up front. The demonstrator ordered from us and gave us money, and then we placed our order and paid 30 days later. So you were financing our business. When you stopped ordering in January of 1990, we still had bills due, but no revenue coming in, no sales, because moms were taking a break. That's most of our demonstrators at that time particularly were part-time demonstrators. They were full-time moms, and they did this as they chose, whenever was convenient for them. So we were in serious trouble. The bills were due, and we had no sales coming in. So we started what we call celebration. My sister and I went out and did regional training seminars and put up some promotions and got sales coming in the door again. And that's when my father came in, who has been an entrepreneur for years, well, since before I was born, said, I need to have somebody come in and look at your books and see where you're doing things wrong. Well, of course, almost everything we were doing was wrong. We had a great idea, but we had not looked at our margins. We were not manufacturing anything on our own. So everything was coming from a wholesaler. So for instance, if a stamp was $5 wholesale and the stores were selling it for $9.95, that's what we were selling it for, was $9.95, so we could be competitive with the stores. But the bottom line was we were paying out normal overhead, the downline commissions and overrides. Our overhead, we were paying people to buy our product. We were losing money on every single sale. So we had to increase our prices dramatically. So instead of taking that $5 wholesale stamp and selling it for $9.95 like the stores, we had to sell the same exact stamp that was down the corner at a craft store. We had to sell it for $15, $14.95. How many of you are going to walk down the store and pay a third more than what you can get it in the store? Maybe if you're not really smart, you might, or if you really don't want to leave your house, it might be worth it to you. That convenience might be worth a third more, but for a lot of our demonstrators, almost half of them, they quit within the months of, with days, I shouldn't say months, but within days of making the announcement of our pricing increase. That was when we realized, okay, so we did everything wrong. Great idea, marketing was good, word of mouth, network marketing is always great when women are talking. But we needed help. And increasing our pricing wasn't going to be the only thing that was going to get us out of trouble. So we backed off and said, okay, board of directors, thank you for your business advice, but we're going to do things a little differently. And we're going to pull back, and instead of charging $9.95 like the stores, we're going to charge $11.95. That's not $14.95 like we should. We know that. It will take us longer to get out of trouble. But at least we can help our demonstrators see that their value is worth something. They can walk into a party and say, yes, you're going to pay a couple dollars more, but you didn't have to leave your house, you didn't have to get a sitter, you didn't have to take your kids with you, blah, blah, blah. And we could sell that, and the demonstrators felt right about that. And that was okay, but it still wasn't what it should have been. And that's when we decided we needed to produce some of our own product where we could control the margins. So we started manufacturing some of our own stamps, artwork that people wanted and we couldn't find elsewhere, so we started to do our own, and that gave us more margins and got us out of trouble quicker. So that was more than 6 months. That was a longer time, but that was kind of the beginnings. So I saw some other hands, but yes. You know, for us, there is not a magical percentage. If you were to talk to purchasing or procurement, they would tell you that for most of our product, we like a 5 times markup, but some things only have a 2.5. Depending on what they are, there are loss leaders. The things that are only a 2.5 times markup sometimes are the things that get people in the door, and then they're okay with the things that are a 5 times markup. For a lot of direct selling companies, if they are not dealing with a 7+ times markup, they cannot pay their overrides and downline commissions. We are not the type of company that professes to give out a lot of, if you wanted to get into the direct selling business, you could go to Mary Kay, or you could go to New Skin, or you could come to Stampin' Up, and you could say, what are your commissions? And some companies are 20%, some give you right off the top 40%, and you can earn commissions and overrides even more than that. We are not the type of company that says, oh, come and join us and make millions of dollars. We just don't have the margins, the markup to do that, because ours is not a consumable product. Like a lot of the, I want to say makeup and nutritional supplements and things like that, they have huge markups. So they have margin to work with, so they can give more to their consultants, and they do end up making more. We're more of what we call a product-driven company, not an opportunity-driven. A lot of direct selling companies are opportunity-driven, come in, make money, and then get a downline, and then sit back and let the revenue come in. And ours is more come and have fun and make a little extra money. Do some people make 6 figures? Yes, but not the majority of people. Most of our demonstrators will pay for a car, or help make the house payment, or pay for their children's music lessons, or pay for their family vacations. So it just depends on what level you want to work at. So, other questions? Yes? The location, Riverton. So random? Why do you say that? Because it's out in the middle of boonies? Okay. It's a great question. I'm just giving you a hard time. Riverton was chosen because at the time we were, well, let me step back. We started the business in Nevada in our living room, moved several times, wanted to get back to Utah because we are Utah, not born, but certainly that's home for us. So we moved to Kanab. How many of you know where Kanab is? Most of you. Okay. So we moved to Kanab, and that's where we still manufacture our stamps. So our manufacturing plant is in Kanab, that's where we're from, but we just couldn't hire enough employees to keep up with our growth. So we had to move to the Salt Lake area, I want to say 98-ish, in 1998, so it's been a lot of years now. And so we kept our manufacturing there, we moved up north to do our call center and our distribution, and we were in the Brickyard area, and then we moved to Jordan Commons. You all know where Jordan Commons is, probably right off the freeway, where they've got the megaplex theaters and such. We were in one of those buildings, and I was done with this whole rent and move, and lease, and sign a lease and not be able to, have enough space for our growth. And so that's when we decided to build. And I started looking for property. And I'm kind of a country girl. If you know I'm from Kanab, then you know I like the country. It's kind of like Ephraim. It's a small town. And so I purposely went looking for out of the way. We did not need to be on the freeway because we are not walk-in business. We don't sell like the stores do. We distribute. We have our corporate offices in Riverton. So it really doesn't matter. We didn't need to spend a lot of money on property and build right off the freeway like a lot of businesses do. And I'm kind of a low-key kind of girl. I don't really need to be center spotlight. So it would cost me less to buy property in Riverton. It was still easily accessible because we're on Bangerter. So you get off the freeway and it's just 5 minutes off the freeway. And it was a little remote. It's not so remote now. We have a Walmart like 2 blocks away. It's really sad. And you guys, I noticed, have a Walmart. That's pretty impressive. You're a happening place if you have a Walmart, right? So, so that was why. And I had employees who were driving from Fruit Heights to Salem, and Riverton was right in the middle. So it made sense monetarily speaking, and it wasn't too far off the beaten path. Not to mention the fact that I had board members who were giving me a hard time for still being in Kanab, because Kanab has been not a revenue-generating portion of our business. I mean, I shouldn't say that. They are generating revenue. We produce all of our stamp sets there. But it would cost us less to do that in northern Utah. But I'm really committed to Kanab, and so we keep the building there. We keep the employees employed, but it costs us more than it should to be in business. So I felt like I needed to be smart. If I wasn't going to be smart, business smart, and have everything up north, I felt like I could be economical by choosing Riverton and maybe not as economical in Kanab. So it's a good question because it is off the beaten path, but I love it. That's great. Yes? My sister is not involved anymore in the business. Thank you for asking. I always like to tell her that she was remembered. I do love her. But I will tell you that being in business with your family is hard. It is hard, hard work. And there came a time when we both differed in our opinions of how Stampin' Up! Should grow and where Stampin' Up! Should locate and all those things that come with business. And we just decided it was better for our sister relationship to part ways. She was still having children. She has 9. She's still trying to get them out of the house, and so she's very, very busy and happy with that. I, on the other hand, was more engaged in the business, and it just made sense for us. I was at the business. She wants to know if I was able to do that without problems. I will not lie and tell you that it was cake, because it wasn't. It was hard. We're great now. We can pick up the phone, we text each other, but it's never going to be the same. Our relationship's not the same as it was 25 years ago, but it's great that there was a year where it was really, really tough negotiating and getting through the ownership shift. I did buy all of her shares, and when we talk about it, which isn't more than once or twice a year, about we talk about business, but we don't talk about that. When we do talk about her not being involved in the business, we always look back and say it was a blessing, and that we're both happy with where we are, and it was the right thing to do for us. So, thank you for asking. They are. Family businesses are hard. I don't know of too many family businesses that aren't hard at some point in time or another. So, good point. Yes? Kanab employs about 60-ish. It has the capacity to employ a lot more, and we are looking at ways that we can manufacture more product and use our building capacity as well as the employee capacity. We have had upwards of 200 employees. That's probably too many for the town. Our building could probably handle it, but it's just a community that doesn't grow very rapidly can only handle. We were at one point in time before we moved some of our operations to northern Utah, we were literally hiring people that we had just fired 2 weeks prior because we needed warm bodies. We just needed people to answer the phones or fill an order. So that's when we knew we had to make a change. Yes? Okay. Well, it's more to produce our stamps in Kanab than it is in Salt Lake because the building costs. There's the sunk cost in the building in Kanab. If I would not have built the building in Kanab, because we do now have a building in Kanab that we own too, we're not leasing. If I wouldn't have done that and I just brought all of our manufacturing to northern Utah in our building that we have now that has capacity, then we could have gained some efficiencies. I made the purposeful decision to employ those people, to have our own building there. And so there are some costs that we didn't need to incur if we would have just moved everything north. But I believe that there's a lot more to business than just the bottom line. I think you have to look out for people, and that's not always easy. But it was something at the time that we could do. We could have both facilities and employ people in both places to get the job done. Does that answer your question? Because it doesn't cost any more. That is true. Commercial ground is cheaper in a rural area. Hence, Riverton is why I built in Riverton. It was less money. But when you have an HR person in Kanab and a team in Riverton, and when you have, I mean, we could have consolidated a lot of things, not just the building costs, but power costs, your HR, human resource costs. We go down a lot to Kanab, our corporate team, to have events down there. Those are all costs that you incur that if we were all in one building, it would cost less to do business. But we've chosen to be in both places. And my board, by the way, is very supportive. Once I told them, because it really doesn't make business sense to be in both places necessarily. Yes? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm supposed to repeat questions. That wasn't a question, but kudos that we kept the business in Kanab too. Honestly, life is about relationships, isn't it? And if you're only in business for the bottom line, you are missing out. If you are looking to be in business or already are in business and all you can think about is the bottom line, I'm sorry for you, because it is about relationships. I love my employees in Kanab, and they are so devoted and so loyal. And it's not that I don't have that in northern Utah, but the employees in Kanab have been there for a long, long time. And I could never do that to them. So anyway, thank you. I saw another hand. Yes. Ooh, if we had not had that 75,000, would we have gone through with it? Or how would we have done it? Or both? Okay. And most people don't have capital. You are exactly right. So what are your next steps? I'm a firm believer. Well, I'll tell you a couple stories. I'm a firm believer that you don't go into debt if you don't have to ever. Even for business. I know not everybody believes that. Some people go after debt to start a business, and I know sometimes you have to. But if you are going to go into debt, then I believe going to Family First and taking out a real legitimate loan. Some people don't believe in loaning from family, but I'm the type that, write me up, charge me interest. So I probably would have gone to family and said, can I get capital from, aunts, uncles, grandparents, parents? That's probably how we would have done it. Thankfully, we didn't have to, because that would have complicated things again involving family. I don't know that I would have gone to a bank. Maybe we would have. We certainly did go to banks when we were in our trouble years. Our 1990 year, we went to several banks, and they looked at us and laughed and said, "You mean stamps? Those things that you put ink on?" And they would look at us like we were idiots. But when we could tell them what the sales were, we just didn't have the perfect business plan. We weren't making lots of money, but they could see the revenue was coming in. Nobody wanted to give us the time of day. We had to, at one point in time, in our most troubling part of the business, we asked for some property from my father. It was paid off. He let us, he deeded it to us, and that we used that as collateral. So he gave each of us a lot. We went to the credit union, because the bank would not give us the time of day. We went to a credit union in small Boulder City and begged, got down on our hands and knees, pretty much literally, and begged for them. Said, well, you guys are crazy. You've got lots that are worth 10 times more than what we're asking for. Really? You would make your money time and time again. I mean, we had to beg. And they gave us a tiny bit, and that's what got us through. And of course, we have lots of banks who'd love to do business with us now. I'm not real high on it. I say that snidely because someday I'll probably have to depend on a bank, and it will teach me humility. But when you walk into a bank and somebody says to you in rural Utah, "So where are your husbands?" When you and your sister walk in and say you want to do business with them, and they say, "Where are your husbands?" Yeah, I'm kind of not a fan of banks. So, anyway, I'm glad some of you laughed. That is supposed to be funny. It's true. But hopefully, and that was, 20 years ago, so I have to be nice because I do know bankers and I love them. But that's not always been the case. I think that people look at women in business differently now than they did 25 years ago. Yes. Ooh, what skills have been the most valuable, or do I believe are the most valuable, and have helped me or the company be most successful? That's a good question. It certainly hasn't been accounting, because I do not do math. For me personally, I think one of my skills is that I'm an optimist. I have maybe a little more faith than some people do. I believe in things that others have a hard time believing in, and I value people. And I think they know that, they feel that. I try to be as genuine and real as I possibly can be. So people will take a risk when they know that your heart's in the right place. So for me, I don't know if that's a skill or not, but for me, that has certainly helped me be successful personally. I believe as a business, Stampin' Up! Has been successful because we do care about relationships. It is in our mission statement. It's in our principles. It's how we operate. Our employees care more about people than they do the products and the profit. Profit's important, don't get me wrong. You have to have profit. You have to be profitable as a business, or you will eventually die. You cannot operate without profit, but it isn't and shouldn't be, I believe, the first thing. So that's probably, I don't know. My husband might say something different if he were here, but he's not. That's just what came to my mind first. Yes, Jamie. How has our business been affected by the economic downturn, and how have we gotten through it? Well, we're still going through it. We have not gotten out of it yet. Our CFO says flat is the new up. We are grateful we can just be flat, if we can be flat. But we've had several years of declining business, so it has definitely affected us in a negative way. But because we have been profitable and I think very careful about our expenditures, then we have been able to maintain our profitability. We've not hired new hires unless it's to replace someone. And even then, we look at a replacement hire very carefully before we do it. So we've been very, very trim is what we call it, train, reduce, and improve. So we have looked for continuous improvements within our business and constantly looking at how we can scale back, do more with less, and that sort of thing. So anyway, I'd love to take just one more question if somebody has a really burning one. Yes. Techniques to avoid or overcome stress. Talk to me in about 10 years, okay? And obviously that's not just in starting up a business. I still deal with stress now, and it's something every day I have to remind myself to breathe. Yoga, I know it sounds really like la, and that's not what yoga is. It's not the sit and zen, but it has helped me learn discipline and learn to breathe and to calm and not get flustered. So physically that's helped me. I don't want to be too personal, but I think a lot of times we rely too much on ourselves and we need to rely on a higher power. And that, I think, can help relieve stress anytime in your life, not just when you're starting a business. So hopefully what I have shared with you today has been helpful to you. If I leave you with two things. The first one I said in the beginning, and that is trust yourself. Trust your heart. First and foremost, it doesn't mean you don't listen to others, but listen to your heart and make the decision that's best for your business, because it's not the same as what someone else might do. The second thing is to have passion for what you do. Love what you do. Love the people you work with. You have to. If you don't, you won't get through the hard times. If you're going into something because it's going to bring you profit, and you don't love what you do, when times get tough, and they will, at some point in time, if you don't have passion for what you are doing, whether it's the service you're providing, then you'll struggle. So those are the two things I want to leave with you. Thank you so much for being a very generous audience. Thank you.